Battle continues at the Supreme Court with, do judges have a right to tell the president that he must re-import a criminal illegal back into the U.S.? And lo and behold, the Supreme Court has sided with President Trump every time and gone over the heads of those lower courts that don't have the authority to do that. So welcome to the Doug TenNapel channel. This is where the happy patriots are. Let me know down below. This is a controversial question. Do you think John Roberts siding with Trump has redeemed himself? Or is he still a rat? Is he still a piece of jello? Put Justice Roberts, put Roberts is jello if you think he hasn't changed. And now let's get to this first story. This is the big controversy over at CNN. We got a whole lot of CNN clips today, lots of clips. Take a seat. We'll get through it here. This is, wow, even CNN chief legal correspondent Paula Reed, that's this lady down here, goes on the news to say Trump is not violating the Supreme Court ruling by not flying Armando Abrego Garcia back to the U.S. So that's what these judges, lower court judges, not the highest court, lower court judges are trying to get him back. Will Democrats listen now? She says they did not order the administration to return him to the United States. They said that they need to facilitate his return. They could have said we ordered him returned, but they didn't do that. Now let's watch that.
And President Trump and President Bukele made it clear that Abrego Garcia will not be returned to the United States, despite this U.S. Supreme Court ruling saying that Trump had to facilitate his return.
Now that's Jake Tapper saying that Trump has to facilitate his return, which is not the same thing as has to return him.
So are they just ignoring a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, or is the fact that the ruling was so mushy, in your words,
yes,
giving him an opening?
It's a technical term I learned in law school, Jake. Mushy. Look, they're working within the ambiguity that the Supreme Court justices gave them. They did not order the administration to return him to the United States. They said that they need to facilitate this return. They could have said, we order him returned, but they didn't do that. So you heard the Attorney General. She was being very careful in the Oval Office when she was asked, would you help? She says, of course, we'd provide a plane, right? Thereby facilitating whatever El Salvador is doing. The Supreme Court appeared to defer to the executive branch, given that this is an international matter. And you see, yes, it does.
Oh, yeah, we're going to stop right there. The Supreme Court deferred to the executive branch, given this was an international matter. That's an important point, because just so you know, the Supreme Court has no international authority. They aren't allowed to do laws for other countries, for anyone else. So that's why they have to defer to the executive branch, the president, because only our president has the right to go and deal with other countries. That is the face of the country that goes out and does things for or against other countries is the president's job. So they're overstepping their boundaries if they tried to pressure him, to do stuff with citizens of other countries. Our courts can't do that at all.
Look a little bit like a semantic game, but they are playing within the bounds of what the Supreme Court ruled. So no, they are not defying this order.
And take a listen to how White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller views it.
And a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the president could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador.
And you can see Marco Rubio down there nodding.
Stephen,
I'm going to go back to that quote just so you can see him confirming. Watch when he says the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, cannot compel another country to take back a citizen.
Could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador.
Stephen, you got the win. I don't know why he had to go so far, because what he's saying is not completely accurate. No, I'm talking to the kidnapping. All right. So the district court said that the administration needed to facilitate and effectuate the return of this man to the United States and gave a date. The Supreme Court says, yes, you need to facilitate this. But when it comes to effectuating, making it happen, they said this needs to go back down to the lower court. They need to clarify what that meant. And they warned the lower court, you need to be deferential to the executive branch.
And this is also really interesting on how our courts work, guys. This is why the sausage is so painful to get through. But if I can explain it to you, you won't, I don't think, be as confused about why nothing happens. Why isn't anything changing? Why doesn't anything happen? The big reason why got 9-0 justices, okay, sent this back down to a lower court, but especially Chief Justice Roberts. Chief Justice Roberts is like a super anal, cross your T's, dot your I's. We don't like it when he sends back all of our lawsuits, you know, like all those election questions in 2020. We don't like when he sends them back. No, but when he sends them back, I just want you guys to know it is on a principle of he wants the format and the form of the lawsuit to be super legal, Loctite, no mistakes, and no slop. So this lower court blew together this thing that said, Trump, you have to go and get that illegal criminal and bring it back to the United States. And Justice Roberts rejected it. He just said, this needs to go to a lower court. You're sloppy. You have to clarify this. You have to do a better job of this. And especially, he says, be very careful that you're not overstepping your boundary as a court to start affecting international, polling of people from other countries, which is the president's job. It's only the president's authority. So that's what all this means. Okay.
We're talking about foreign affairs, and they gave no deadline. So again, they're not running afoul, but Stephen's summary of the case there, the holding, it's not exactly accurate.
Okay, let's get to the next news, because that's CNN doing fake news against the Supreme Court. And speaking of fake news, here's Lindy Lee. This is the Democrat backstabber who, she's kind of going fake MAGA now because she has no more money because her Democrat Party lost. She's a fundraiser for the Democrat Party. Now she's a critic of the Democrat Party. She's on Piers Morgan, trashes her former Princeton professor for suggesting American voters did not choose Kamala Harris because of racism.
He is the ultimate DEI hire. It's an embarrassment to Princeton University, and I'm still an elected officer there. I'm embarrassed that we share the same university, frankly. He's been like this for years. This isn't just a one-off. And Matt, I also want to say, just putting everything aside, I've been highly critical of you in the past. I want to apologize. No ands, ifs, or buts. I'm sorry. Everything that you said, I completely agree with, and I'm just sorry. You were right. And you were nicer to the Democrats than I would have been. He's not just a one-off or an exception.
That's Matt Schlapp to her left, who's a big Republican, fundraiser, muckety muck. And she just apologized to him wholeheartedly and then threw her old Democrat professor under the bus.
What Eddie Glade just said, that professor, he represents a vast majority of Democrats who are still wallowing in their wokeism, in their DEI politics. The former DNC chair that just stepped down, Jamie Harrison, who continues to attack me almost on a weekly basis, he said that we need to double down on identity politics. It's just so shameful that they still haven't learned their lesson. They still learn nothing from the.
Now, one thing about this Lucy Lee gal, which is very interesting, this is a split in the Democrat Party. So she represents the side that just wants to win. And that's what a Democrat fundraiser will tend to be. They may not be an ideologue. They may not have values. They may not even care what the Democrat Party believes in. They go, look, we just got to win at all costs. That same temptation is here for us on the right, on the Republican Party. Are you willing to throw out every Republican principle if it means that you win? Well, she's one of those, okay, who goes, and so that's her job. Now, there's other people in her party who are true believers, and they're going, how dare you criticize us and say that you just want to win, like Bill Maher's another one, where they'll kind of go like, look, let's ditch all the trans stuff. Let's ditch the open borders. Let's ditch our unpopular stuff. Stephen A. Smith says that talks this way too. And they go, and let's start winning again. I don't know what we stand for, but let's just start winning.
2024 election. Let me give you an example. I hosted Biden on May 1st, 2024. It was supposed to be a normal event, but because I was Asian American, they made it all about identity politics, not bothering to ask if I wanted that or not. They brought a lion dance to my event with President Biden. That's not my culture. I grew up in this country.
A lion dance, you know, the puppet lion that goes up. This is how bad the Democrats are. I love this. And the other thing is, like, you'll see that Asian Americans, including Asian Democrats, are the least about identity politics. They're the least about, like, give us freebies. We need welfare. We need help with our math scores in school. They don't need help with math scores. They kick everyone's butt because they're so disciplined. So they treat them like they're some oppressed minority, even though in America, anyways, Asians tend to out-earn white Americans. So, like, they don't work on the whole Black Lives Matter, America's a racist country. She's like, I was raised here in the United States. And the Democrat Party, they have, when they celebrate her, they brought out a lion dance puppet, boom, boom, with the old drums. She's like, you know, I'm an American. Let's get some hot dogs and apple pie.
Culture is Britney Spears. I have no connection with lion dances or any of that sort of stuff. I don't even know what the year of the animal thing is. I would have to Google if you asked me when Chinese New Year is.
I'm year of the horse, year of the monkey. They're trying to shove they're looking at her. This is the best. This is what I love about her is they're looking at her DNA and saying, now you must care about the year of the rat because we've looked at your DNA and the shape of your eyes. And we'll just pile all this stuff onto you, including grievances that you didn't experience. She's like, look, I like Britney Spears. I was raised on. I kind of like that.
I have no idea. So they force this identity politics nonsense on you against our will and then wonder why they keep losing elections.
Yeah. So like I said, she's about just winning. Let's get to the next clip here. This is Alex Karp. He's the fuzzy-headed tech billionaire. I'll bring him up on screen here so you can see him over there on the right. Good buddies with Elon Musk, Sam Altman, David Sachs, Palantir, all those guys. Okay. Alex Karp. And he's saying how calling Elon Musk a Nazi is just so ignorant of history, which means all Democrats are ignorant of history.
Only CEOs CEOs that went to Israel who run publicly traded companies are Elon and I, which, by the way, makes whatever you think of Elon, calling him a Nazi, especially since it seems to be highly correlated to having been supportive of essentially the Hamas wing of the terrorist movement. And
that's Democrats who support the Hamas wing of the terrorist movement. For them to call Elon Musk a Nazi is insane.
In some way, it's not causation, but is like completely absurd and like a complete rewrite of history.
They don't call anyone a Nazi because they believe you actually act like a Nazi. They actually act more Nazi-like, if anything, but they're not going to see it because all they know is to call their enemy a Nazi. And if you're with Trump a Nazi. It's all done in ignorance, guys. This is just performative, ignorant stuff. And speaking of performative ignorance, CNN has a long history of just, this is the most, I put together this super clip. This is the most, actually, I didn't put it together. Another guy put it together, but I found it for you. Oh, this is Facarando over at Media Matters, Fondacaro. A super clip of everything negative that CNN has said about America in the last couple of years.
Here's a breaking news. We live in a racist, sexist, homophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic country.
Everything they're doing runs against making America great.
Well,
it was never great, so I'm not going to say the again part, but making America great.
Kicking off the Independence Day weekend, President Trump will be at Mount Rushmore, where he'll be standing in front of a monument of two slave owners and on land wrestled away from Native Americans.
We stole our country from the Native Americans.
Focusing on the effort to, quote, tear down our country's history.
They strongly believe, these human smugglers, that this is their chance to enter the United States. This is their chance at the American dream. That's why they risk everything, only to find out that it's all a lie.
And when we got our freedom, our quote unquote freedom, we were never restored whole, which is why you hear about reparations. So until the United States atones for that and makes good on that, we're still living in a racist country.
That was just making my case about CNN. Now, Here's Byron Donalds on a very popular idea to me, and I'll ask you what you think in the comments below. Should we get rid of all national income tax? Write in the comments, get rid of the tax if you agree with Byron Donalds.
For those who've studied American history, especially constitutional history, you know that Woodrow Wilson's design was to turn the federal government, which at the time was quite frankly mechanical in nature, into an amoeba that would grow and amass power and frankly bring directives to the people, regardless of elections and regardless of the will of the people. I would love to repeal 16. And so if you're going to repeal the 16th Amendment, we have to start flipping other states to be more like Florida. People need to understand that their right to their own incomes, is fundamental before you get to anything else. I think there's a way we could get that done. We need more citizens to realize that actually retaining their own wealth matters more than anything else.
It's also how you exercise your will in America is with your wealth, with your spending power. So if you keep more of your own money, he's talking about getting rid of that, the federal income tax, which I don't think is that radical. And he makes a great case for it, but it's how you express your freedom is through how you spend your money. Both the FBI and the IRS are now assisting in the investigation into the $24 billion missing from the California homeless funding. We will get to the bottom of it. And if we find that there's any federal laws that are violated, we will arrest and prosecute those individuals involved, says attorney Bill Asaley. You'll only find interest in stopping this fraud and abuse of spending homeless money on anything but the homeless in California. You won't find any concern of that in California. You'll only find it at the national level. So you got to hope the feds find something. Let's watch.
Republican, MAGA-aligned United States attorney here in Los Angeles, Bill Asaley, he just launched a federal probe investigating exactly where California's homeless dollars are going. The FBI and IRS are going to assist. Asaley estimates $24 billion in homeless funding statewide over the past 5 years, much of that spent here in Southern California.
We will get to the bottom of it, and if we find that any federal laws are violated, we will arrest and prosecute those individuals involved.
Governor Gavin Newsom and the chair of the LA County Supervisors tell Fox they welcome Asaley's investigation. However, LA Mayor Karen Bass, who says homeless numbers dropped by 10% last year, she says she doesn't want the investigation to be, quote, a fishing expedition.
Okay. Why does Bass not want it to be a fishing expedition? We're going to get to, because we have a clue. Nearly 100, this is Will O'Neill, nearly 100 days after the fires in LA. And it's going about how you'd expect the LA's leadership. Only 4 permits for homeowners to rebuild their properties has been issued by the city of LA by the end of March. Only 4 rebuilds of all those houses, tens of thousands of buildings, structures gone, which was 4 more than LA County issued in the aftermath of the Eaton fire. After 75 days, Los Angeles has issued 4 permits to rebuild. How's rebuilding going? We predicted it. I don't think it's that radical of a prediction even for me to be right and just bet against California because it does not like building. It hates construction. It has all the rules. And that's why every time Gavin Newsom talks about rebuilding and Lori Bass talks about loving rebuilding, you know they don't believe it. That's why I'm betting against them. LA will never get rebuilt. And I only want to know from all the liberals whose house burned down, will you change the way you vote? Because you deserve to lose your house. Not this time, because maybe you were ignorant this time, but next time you vote, you know you're voting for people that will not issue permits to rebuild houses. If you vote for Gavin Newsom or Kamala Harris or whoever replaces that guy or whatever liberal goes and replaces that guy, if you put an X next to a Democrat, you're saying, I don't want a house. Last week, the mayor's recovery czar, Steve Sabaroff, resigned. You might remember that Sabharov was hired shortly after Bass returned from Africa, despite being warned about the high fire danger, to lead the first phase of the city's rebuilding effort. Civic leader Steve Sabharov to head LA's wildfire rebuilding and recovery efforts, and he steps down. He knows he doesn't want to have this record stuck on his life record because his hands are tied by calcified, anti-building, green environmental, just pro-Democrat, terrible waste. The most beautiful place in the world is Southern California, and run by some of the worst leaders in the world. Now, you tell me in the chat below, will LA ever rebuild? That's the first question. Number two, will LA liberals change their vote in 26 and 28? I'm Doug in exile.